Hello, y'all. My name is Nathan Kellman. I am currently a level designer at Escape Velocity Entertainment. I've been in the industry for, how long has it been now? 4 years. I started at Hangar 13 Games as an intern, a level design intern, working on like an unannounced project. I did a little bit of work on the Mafia Old Country. I went to another studio called Lost Voice Interactive, where I was there for about a year and a half, worked on Diablo 4 and some other projects, and became a part of this team to help build tools for our studio. Did another short stint at a small studio called Swords and Wands for like an unannounced, I think now it's a cancel like action RPG, little double A thing. And now I'm working at Escape Velocity Entertainment, working on like I do a triple A, hopefully big time shooter. So yeah, and then on the side, I also do teaching. I teach a level design course for game design skills. I've been doing it so far about a year now. I've done like 2 cohorts. So, yeah, we just out here grinding.
No doubt. And so what was your start into that? How did you get to level design and navigate to that?
Yeah, funny thing for me, since I was 15 years old, I've always wanted to make games. But, I didn't know how to with us. I knew I wanted to be something creative, but I had no idea. When I got to college, after I was done playing football, I ended up talking to one of my professors, and he introduced me to a club called Texas Aggie. I went to Texas A&M for my undergrad. And I joined the club, found out there was a game design minor, got into that. And that's why I got into games. I originally wanted to be a 3D artist. But then when I did my master's at Michigan State University, I started myself doing more design work. And I learned I saw that level design was a fusion of design with art. So I was already kind of doing it on projects. So it was actual things. And as I started researching, I started learning like, oh, so this is what level designers are. So yeah, man, that's how I kind of stumbled into it. I know it was the actual thing, and I kind of locked in and got focused with that.
When you went to Texas A&M, they had a program that sort of you was able to sort of do that. How long has that program been there? Because I know as far as game industry stuff in general, there's not too many avenues, a platform where you can take this and develop that. You were actually able to get in a program and say you already had the idea of what you wanted to do, and they were able to foster that creativity, I guess you could say. So like, what would you say, I guess pros, cons about that sort of being able to be in that environment? From what I understand, that's either not prevalent everywhere or still in its infancy. It's still that's something that's still being created in a lot of places. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with Texas A&M, effectively, they have a program called visualization. I wasn't in the program, but I had a minor in art and game design. My last year, I had played collegiate football for about a year, and the visualization program at Texas A&M is like very hard. Because they have people do everything creative. They make games, do animations, create websites, anything involving visual creativity, life drawing, sculptures, it's like art galore. And it's a strenuous program. Like I think for my last year at A&M, I got a chance to take like a bunch of classes, like a life drawing class, a video game design class, multimedia. And when I'm talking about, bro, they had us in there grinding. I'm talking about, bro, I had one time I had a project due. I was up till 6 a.m., took a 2-hour nap, went to present it, slept in the lab for 6 hours, and had to get back to it on the game design thing. Like it's a hard program, but around the time when I was there, that was when they started trying to do more game stuff because at Texas A&M is really known for animation. A lot of the animators at Pixar actually went to Texas A&M. Like a lot of alumni actually go there, right? So when I was there, games were even bigger. A bunch of us were in this club. We kind of like got together in one winter break and decided to make a game together. Didn't really go anywhere, but it was a huge learning experience. I went from knowing nothing about development to learning Unreal Engine, Maya, texturing, like a Substance Painter, the whole shebang, right? So yeah, just being there around people that were just as hungry as I was, and the creativity that we had, it fostered something more too. So I had this cool opportunity where I was in the club. They had a game design competition where you can pitch a game to a panel of people. That was my first time ever doing a pitch, something like this. Like I pitched a game idea out of like 8 contestants. I came to second, and the top 2 games, they got their games made. And that experience for me, like trying to get that game made, that was where I really learned like game development, project management, and working on a team with a game project. Because it was my first time really being like, you gotta understand, when I got into it, I probably had like 4 months of like game design knowledge because I was taking the intro to game design class, and now I'm directing the video game. Like, it'll have you learn tremendously. I learned so much from doing that. When I got to Michigan State, which has a top 10 game design program in the country, I was able to take that knowledge and apply it there, and like Michigan State was where I got to really flourish because they were really focused on game design there.
Huh. Interesting. I didn't know that about Pixar and Texas A&M. Texas is a hotbed for a lot of, this stuff as far as gaming. So that makes a lot of sense. You were able to get an opportunity to have a game made, which
Yeah.
I'm under the impression that that is incredibly difficult, seeing how, because a lot of the people, they tell me how hard it is to get a game shipped, or how hard it
Yes.
is to get to that sort of, even to get to that realm of, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, damn near impossible task. So
Yeah.
like, you being able to actually have that experience, I'm sure was invaluable from that. Where did you sort of take that and progress that? How did you, you know, what did you learn from that?
Yeah, as far as the game idea, it didn't really end up going anywhere. We actually got a lot of it made, but because I was still really new to game development and stuff. Like the funny thing is, so I'm a level designer now. By the time I was like directing the game, like I didn't even understand level design. For some reason, my mind just started like, yeah, it's just gonna the levels are just going to like appear out of nowhere. But we never planned them, never had maps for them, like nothing, bro. Like it was just so much to learn. Game development was the foundation for me, learning game development and
Yeah,
then building on top of that, right? To the point where I was able to, when I went to Michigan State, I started becoming leaders of like our game development teams. And I was like
gotcha.
producing those teams, being part of those teams. And then later on, Michigan State University, I actually had another game idea that was like this turn-based fitness game, kind of like Ring Fit, but like
Okay.
with like a Wii board, a Wii Fit board.
Hmm.
And I actually had a chance to pitch that, and I actually got funding for that, like through a small grant to hire people and make it. So that ended up being my master's project. So like,
Hmm.
really like the game design stuff at A&M with the competition
Hmm.
really to me helped us out to set the foundation for me to then becoming on to be the game designer that I will say I am today. So a
Yeah.
lot of work, but we got here.
Yeah, no doubt. Like you said, level designer now, but obviously you had to work your way to that. Talk to me a little bit about level design. Is it like, I mean, obviously I would assume most people, when they hear
Right.
level design, they like, okay, when I'm playing Mario or
Yeah,
Donkey
yeah, yeah,
Kong and I'm jumping
yeah,
on this and the
yeah,
board does this, or
yeah,
if I'm playing Mario, the string's moving, I got to jump here, I got to do this.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
there's a
yeah, yeah,
platform here, stuff like that.
yeah.
Like, obviously, I'm sure you're thinking about that, but you're thinking about it from a totally different perspective because you
Yeah,
almost have to create that experience for them because you don't necessarily know what the player's gonna do, but you also have to anticipate,
yeah,
like, this would be fun or this would be cool if the player could do
yeah.
this. And so, how do you think of through those things? Like, how do you work through those ideas?
No, man, that's a good question. Well, level design, the number one thing I always tell people is like, what is the experience for players, right? Like, perfect example, like you brought up Mario. Mario's whole main mechanic is jumping,
Hmm.
right? So you want to come up with interesting ways how Mario can jump, whether it's like on top of platforms, moving platforms, little like round circle things with fire on them.
Hmm.
So you're essentially levels like you're trying to think of ways of how the player can use mechanics that are given to them in really interesting ways, and how it kind of tells the story. Also, like if you're making the Mario games, it's all about
Hmm.
okay, how can they jump through this? Can they jump on this platform? The platform is moving. Can they go on the platform that's circling around with fire? Just try to make really interesting experiences. And then you go to some games like Uncharted or God of War, which are way
Hmm.
more story heavy. You're
Yeah.
now thinking, okay, how does this feel like the levels telling the story? Where it's
Hmm.
like the parts where the player is fighting enemies to pivotal moments happening in this cinematic scene where we want to show like a really big vista of the big point, right? Where they're going to go. At the end of the day, it's all about what is the experience you want to provide the players, and then you
Hmm.
kind of like build around that. Number one, another thing too is like Call of Duty, Overwatch, Marvel Rivals, some multiplayer games. In those instances, it's not about like the story or anything like that. It's more of like if I drop 12 players into this space, how do I make sure all 12 of them feel like they can win the match?
Hmm.
I gotta see if the angles are looking straight, make sure the cover is all making sense, ways from the flank around people, get the higher ground. So it really depends on what the experience is. That's the number one thing as level designers. You need to understand what the experience is before you
Hmm.
can build something. Because, for example, imagine you making Mario level, but there's nowhere to jump. Then
Yeah.
it's like, well, what's
Yeah.
the they're like, what's the point? Like
Yeah.
Mario's got a jumping camp. We gotta make him jump, right? He can't just
Yeah.
run over the place. I always tell people, I don't care how beautiful your level looks, how amazing your enemies are, how intricate your story is. If I'm playing your game and I have to jump a gap, but the gap's too short to jump, or the gap's too high, like too far to jump, and I
Hmm.
keep dying, that's a bad level. You're not letting the player use mechanics of this be creative to match like what experience is, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, it's a lot that can go into it, and it can be a lot, but it can be a lot of fun too when people
Yeah.
catch it.
Yeah. That was going to be a part of my next question was like, brought up Mario because I was bringing up like a trying to think of an easy game, but you brought up God of War and Uncharted, which are masterpieces as far as adventures is concerned
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
amount of stuff that's sort of in them. And I can only imagine like all of the different intricacies that could go into creating a level like God of War, where you trying to put Easter eggs in places, you trying to, you might put something that might only 20% of people notice, different things like that. So that's where my head was going on. I can only imagine the detail that entails. But
Yep.
that leads me to the technology. How does that help the grand ideas versus some of the things you might have to tone down? What do you find are the things you spend the most time on as far as like designing or, the trying to craft the play experience around something? What takes the longest or takes the most to draw out?
That's a good one. I would say for me, the longest is just knowing when the level, like, what does it feel good, right? Like, what does it feel like it's done? I mean, as
Yeah.
creatives, like, you never
Yeah,
feel
you
like
want
your
to keep
work is
going.
done. You
Yeah.
want, but that's a big challenge though, is like understanding when, okay, I've made this thing, what I consider good. I mean, definitely for me, right? When I first started my career, I was trying to get that better understanding. The lucky thing, like for me, being like at a AAA studio, my first job, I was around a lot of people that had 10 times my experience. There's
Mm-hmm.
a senior designer and my lead that I actually still work with Velocity now. They were at Hangar 13. My lead, he's been in the industry for like 20 plus years. He worked on the original Thief game, like back in
Okay.
the day.
Yeah.
The singer that I know, he's worked on Borderlands, the Telltale game series. He's worked
Mm.
with. So being around those people and that knowledge, whenever I was making something, I would go to them and they'd be like, "Oh, well, what about this?" And I would think about something completely different, like, right.
Yeah.
So that's just a really big thing. That working in escape velocity with those same people, trying to understand like, okay, when does this space feel good? And the one where you can be validated too is when people play test. Because the
Yeah.
funny thing about when you're level designer, you can think, oh, my level is like, bro, it's about to be hard, bro. Like
Yeah.
it's about to be crazy. People play it, and I've had stuff that I made, and people are like, "Oh, I hate this so much. This is gonna feel good." I just and you're like, "Okay, damn, I thought I was
Yeah.
right. I thought I was cooking, but I guess not." So we're
Yeah.
just gonna keep working this. That's a really big one. I think you know it when the level feels good and done. And a lot of times
Hmm.
it's just you gotta get it play tested. You gotta get feedback from people. You need to look at other games as well. I'm a big believer of when it comes to if I'm getting hired to work on a game, the first thing I always ask people is, "What's the experience? What other games we're using for reference? Like, what are the games? If we're making a multiplayer shooter, are we trying to make Call of Duty Battlefield, Overwatch, Marvel Rivals? Are we trying to make something like Deadlock? Are we trying
Hmm.
to make up like a MOBA mixed with Modern Warfare? When I understand what those games are, I can then go play those games, get a better understanding of how they make their levels and how their experiences are, and dropping it to what we're making, right? And that's a lot of times too. A lot of research is understanding like what is the experience, like what are we trying to build here? Because once I get understanding, then it makes the whole build process a bit easier. That's just kind of things that I always
Yeah.
think about when I'm on these projects.
In the future, as technology grows, so we're gonna have more AR, VR, different ways to experience these games. I can only imagine level design for a VR experience where it's 360. So from a level design perspective, what does that look like for you in the future as technology grows and you have these experiences? Where do you foresee level design in
Mhm.
gaming and in general?
Yeah, it's really funny you mentioned VR because while I was actually doing my master's, I had a chance to actually work on a VR game that was
Hmm.
kind of like we call it God of War in VR, where you had these two axes, you throw robots and stuff, and that was
Okay.
actually really, really interesting to me because I was so used to making levels like this for PC, but when I got into VR, it was so much different because generally when I was making levels, I can essentially build them in the way I gotta understand, like, okay, I know this metric works, I know this works here. Like I'll play test it, but I know it's working. VR, it was like because you're not a whole different space, you gotta think about okay, like where are the boundaries for the player? How far can the player go? If the person is there, right, in that space, they can just keep walking.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the thing with VR, because when you first get in VR, the way our senses work is all from the brain. If a
Hmm.
person's in VR and their brain, like your brain is like your eyes see something that's processed through your brain. So, for example, if you see a wall there, your brain's like, oh, that's an actual physical wall. But if
Yeah.
you keep walking by it and walk through it, it can trip you up. So it's
Mhm.
one of those things where you gotta think about, okay, how do we place the boundaries? How do we tell people like, hey, you're over here? How do we let people move through the world? Can they just like walk around? Do they gotta teleport? It's a lot of really
Hmm.
crazy things. In terms of the technology, in terms of the future levels, I just want to see worlds getting bigger. Open world games every year this came out, GTA
Yeah.
6.
I was just going to say
GTA 6
GTA
will
6 from a level design sort of like just
mm-hmm.
your big picture, thoughts on it. Like what goes into like an idea or obviously Rockstar is
Yeah.
one of one. Just imagine you were working on a game. Where would your mind even go to begin to create, the sort of stuff that we probably going to see here when they drop?
Yeah. Man, I mean, number one, first of all, like Rockstar, they people aren't saying like I mean playing Red Dead 2, GTA 5, right? Like those worlds are huge. There's so much going on with them. So majestic. Kudos to them and their people that work on those games. It's insane to me. For a game like that, I can only imagine being those designers, those artists thinking about, okay, we gotta make a world this big. We gotta put all these things in it. I love it when you work on open world games. My first game I worked on was open world, and it was really intimidating because it's like, oh my god, this is a huge thing. But what you really need to think about is the experience. Think about it in sections. Okay, we have this big open world. We're going to cut it up like a cake into like 7 or 8 sections.
Yeah.
This section is where this goes. For example, like Diablo 4, like we had it where the frozen wastelands are here, the swamps
So
are.
is that why most games, when they have a big world like that, it's always sort of divided up into like pieces? Or like, is that why most games are broken up? Because it's like that's sort of the thought process to begin with. It's sort of like pieced together, and it's probably just easier to do it from section like that. Because I can imagine trying to take that big block and say, okay, we have to fill that. And then once you fill it, like you put all the stuff into it and you don't only filled up 20% of it. And now you like, you know, wow. But then I'm sure like from a studio, like from a AAA standpoint, a big studio, you have all these assets that you've used before, so you can kind of piece it together. But where does that sort of enter in, like AI and those different type of things as far as level design? Because obviously people are going to use these tools to sort of speed up processes, but obviously you don't want to interfere with the creativity. What go into is how do you balance that act of, you know, obviously these tools are here and here to stay, but obviously you're going to keep your own creativity and kind of keep that cooking.
So far, that hasn't really hit me yet. I know artists who have seen it. When it comes to AI, it's a slippery slope because so many people, if they like, if you want to turn off a game developer faster, you mentioned crypto or AI. I'm talking about if you want, like, even I remember one time I had sort of trying to work on like a game that had felt like cryptocurrency, and they actually pitched me, and actually was actually really interested how they were using it. But the problem is when you pitch this, you gotta try not mention crypto or blockchain upfront, because if you do, when you go pitch it to somebody, they gonna be like, "Oh hell no." They told me, yeah, we actually went to a conference one time. We talked about how it had blockchain. As soon as we said that, people we talked to just turned their heads away. I'm like, yeah, and it was an interesting game too. It's gonna be interesting to see because the one thing you could do with AI, right? Like, let's say you have, because the thing about GTA, a lot of those games, like they're inspired by real world locations. Like I think GTA 5 is inspired by Los Angeles. GTA 6 is definitely, as we saw the trailers, is Florida, right? So you can bring in a Google map of Florida, have it AI generate like 3D geometry, go in there your own self and like make adjustments to it. So I mean that's just one way how to like get the process going. Because the thing about AI that people gotta understand is like right now it's where AI is. It can't. It's gonna be really interesting to see because a lot of these companies think that AI can just generate an entire game for you.
Yeah.
When it can't, like at the moment. And the thing with AI, you have to pump stuff into it to get what you want. At the end of the day, you can pump in like, oh, let's make another GTA 6. It could really pump that out, but at the end of the day, that GTA 6, like when that game comes out a year later, people aren't going to want that. They're going to want more, right? So that's just one way how you kind of think about it. But yeah, I think when it comes to AI, it's an interesting trend because yes, the tools are here to stay. I think many people are using different ways for their studios. I just think the thing that has to happen is we gotta find that balance of when are we using it too much that is affecting people's creativity or affecting people's job security to how are we using this to now help us build games faster, more efficiently, get our ideas on the board and start adjusting, right? So that's I think what we're trying to figure out right now is as we see a lot of these lawsuits happen, ArtStation got to a point where people were posting AI images and ArtStation artists were like, we're not using ArtStation until y'all let us know that AI is on here. EA and bigger studios are using it for some of their prototyping stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see where it all lays out. Personally, will it replace game developers? Honestly, I don't know. Looking at the AI out there now, you look on Instagram, you load through videos, you don't know if it's AI or not nowadays. Hopefully, as things go on, even the SAG Awards with the Writers Guild, they had that whole strike because AI can take away our voices and our jobs. They have the new AI actress is happening now. We just gotta figure out where that line, where we draw that line in the sand, and hopefully, people like us as creators, we stay against people who are trying to use it in their own way. Just try to find that common ground because it's going to stay. Just gotta figure out how we want it to stay.
What are you working on now? Talk about what you can talk about with it and what you got working now.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm working on an unannounced project right now. Essentially, I don't think everybody say much, but yeah, like I say, it's really unannounced. So Escape Velocity is about 3 years old. It was started by former people at Hangar 13 because back when I was Hangar 13, we had a project we were working on together that got canceled, and then a bunch of us got laid off. And some of those people who were there, who were like the game directors of that game,
Mm-hmm.
founded Escape Velocity Entertainment, and now working on a whole new game. I
Okay.
came onto the team about like a year ago after I got laid off by Lost West Interactive. I
Mm-hmm.
remember I reached out to my former director, who's my former lead, who's now actually associate director. I was like, hey, my studio had a layoff. I don't know if you guys have anything going on in your studio, but I'm looking for work. And they were like, oh, well, we're actually looking to hire a level designer.
Hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I think even the NAV director there, he knew me as well. He actually reached out to
Hmm.
leadership, be like, hey, Nathan's looking for work. We got what we can do. And they were like, don't worry, we were already talking to him. So it was good to have those connections there, man. I will say with the game we're working on, it's a really interesting game. I think it's something that people haven't really seen before.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun to play. Currently, it's me and the senior. We're the only two level designers on the game. We're actually bringing the third level designer onto the team really soon. That's our new lead. And we have our associate director who's been kind of working on it hands-on. Team has grown so much in the last couple of months that he can't really be in the trenches as he used to. So we're hiring
Yeah.
more level designers. So, but yeah, I will say this game, it's one of the most interesting games I've worked on so far because it's in a genre that I wasn't really familiar with. I had to really dive into this type of genre. I
Mm-hmm.
had to play these games a lot. I definitely have grown a lot here as a designer, especially as a level designer. It's so far the most exciting one that I've worked on so far. And
Mm.
whenever I get a chance to, to talk about it or show it, I
Yeah.
will be pretty proud of the stuff I've been making. It's been a lot of fun here.
Tell people how they can find the stuff that you've worked on, your projects, and
Yeah.
anything connected to you, how you want people to find you.
They can hit me up on LinkedIn, Nathan Kellman. I have my own website. If you Google my name, Nathan Kellman, level designer, you'll
Mm-hmm.
see my website. You'll see the class that I teach through game design skills. I even got Twitter. You can just follow me at Nathan Kellman. Nothing too crazy, But yeah, that's really where you can find me. I'm also on Discord. Quite a bit. I'm a moderator in the Discord called the Design Den, which has been
Okay.
around since like 2020. Full of like a lot of AAA designers to indie. If you look up Design Den Discord, you can hop in there. I'm in there talking to people, trying to get the community together. So yeah, there's just a couple different places people can follow me and kind of talk to me there. Nothing too
Okay.
crazy.
My last question for you is you brought up the teaching aspect. So talk a little bit about your teaching, what it is that you are teaching and what you're trying to accomplish, with all
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah, man. So with I was approached by a company, this startup company called Game Design Skills, where they actually teach game design. And I was interested. I was asked if I want to teach level design course, and I was like, cool. So the big thing right now with level design is the career path. It's one that a lot of people try to get into, but there's so much misinformation out there. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've known so many people who are like, I want to be a level designer, and they start making environment art, not understanding that those are two separate things.
Yeah.
Or when it comes to level design, there's like a lot of theoretical knowledge out there, like how do players go through the world? How do you guide players? How do you let players know what things happen? A lot of this stuff is useful information, but it's so theoretical. For my class, I teach the actual production of level design. How do you research your idea? How do you think about the narrative for your level? How do you do pre-production, making a top-down map that you can draw that has your level drawn out, typing up a level design document about like what the player's doing, like every single step of the level, what are assets you need, right? And then how do you like first do a really first quick pass of your level to where you get an idea of how long it feels and how it feels, right? Then you do iterations to the point where you get to the final level, right? Because the one thing that I saw was a lot of people are learning like the theoretical stuff about level designs and like what makes level like look good, but not to actually build it. So for
Mm-hmm.
my class, I'm just trying to feel like, hey, this is how you properly build a level and how you go around through it. We talk about theory a little bit, but we don't try to do it to a point where that's all we talk about. I try to be like, okay, guys, first thing you're going to do is you're just going to get some cubes and make the floor plan on your level. Don't add walls, don't add all these other things, so thing like just making the floor plan. And I've had students be like, well, when we get out, be patient. Be patient. You're going to get there, bro. Just be patient. But then as the class keeps going, they start realizing, oh my God, the fact that we start doing all this introduction stuff here made level really good here. I learned
Mm-hmm.
from a lot of senior developers who are like 15, 20 years my senior. I saw how they made their levels. I took a lot what they did and used for my workflow. I'm like, okay, wow, this is actually working really well. Number
Mm-hmm.
one thing, a lot of level designers do who are new, they try to add in so much detail to their levels when they're just making the blockout stage. It's like you don't need to model all the windows and the doorknobs and the
Yeah.
doors on your building. Just make a big cube. If the player's not going into it, just make one big cube and that's it. We ain't got to do all that stuff, right? But when we add detail where it matters. So for the class has been great. I had two students who both ended up taking line tests for companies, and both of them told me that taking my class increased their confidence so much, and they felt like, yeah, when I took these design tests before, it used to be really intimidating because I think one he did it for Naughty Dog, and then the one did
Mm.
it for people who made I think was Dead Island. Before your class, I would take these design tests and I have no idea what where to start. But
Mm-hmm.
then when they took my class, they felt totally confident tackling the design test. They got through both of the rounds. They didn't get hired, sadly, but they were able to like pass the design test portion,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that is kind of like what I'm teaching, just trying to share that knowledge with like people who are new generation, people who try to break the industry now. Because no man, it's hard. Like getting
Yeah.
into games, especially today's world and game
Mm-hmm.
development, it's not easy. So and there's so much misinformation out there. Other schools are teaching stuff that's not the right way, or people learn online, trying to figure out a way to get back to people, be like, this is how you're actually supposed to go about this, especially at a production
Right.
if you're working at a studio.
That's dope.